March basketball is here, ladies and gentlemen, and in classic Bulls fashion, the Bulls are in peak form entering the month of March. But no, seriously, it was good to see the Bulls get a win, ending that awful stretch in February of 11 straight losses. Yes, I know, not an ideal win over a Milwaukee Bucks team that you're directly competing against in the Tankathon standings, but the Bulls were 3 games behind the Bucks going into tonight. They closed that gap to just 2 games, but as I said on Twitter earlier today, there was absolutely no way the Bulls were going to be losing every game for the rest of the season. As much as we all wanted it, no chance, because inevitably you are going to run into some games where your guys get hot, shoot the ball well, and your opponent has a horrible night and shoots like crap, where they can't buy a basket for an extended period of time. And that's exactly what happened in this game for the Bulls. The Bucks shot 2 for 20 for a long stretch there in the fourth quarter. The Bulls went on an insane 27-0 run, their largest run of the season. They closed out the Bucks 33-8 in the fourth quarter, absolutely obliterating them and capitalizing on their poor shooting, turning the ball over, getting outworked on the glass. Everything fell the Bulls' way in the second half, particularly the fourth quarter, while everything just went wrong for the Milwaukee Bucks. That's gonna happen in an NBA game. Once again, it's why I always say full-on tanking is risky, because you are inevitably going to win games that you would otherwise expect to be losses. The players are always going to come out and want to compete. They want to play to win. So yes, for those mad about this loss and only want to see the Bulls lose the rest of the season, it's unrealistic to expect them to lose every game from here on out. That's just not going to happen. They are still professional basketball players at the end of the day. But don't worry, the Bulls are still going to lose the majority of their games the rest of the year. They're not suddenly going to go on some insane winning streak to close out the season, although I say that, but I also thought that about this Bulls team last season coming out of the All-Star break, and they ended up going 15-5 in their last 20 games. Now, the other reason I'm personally not mad about this win, and similarly to some of the other losses that we saw over the past few games, is that we've actually seen a lot of positive things to be excited about from some of these young players, most notably Domantas Bucelis, who I think we all can agree is the Bulls' most important player when it comes to this team's future and his overall development. Modest has consistently been more active and aggressive on offense, especially when it comes to his on-ball creation, his shot creation. He's not standing around as much on the perimeter just waiting for the ball to come to him, but rather bringing the ball up the floor, taking his man one-on-one, been shooting some mid-range shots. Love seeing that. Billy's finally letting him let those jumpers fly, but I've also been impressed with the improved passing, particularly in the pick and roll. Also timing his passes better on cutters going to the basket to reduce his overall number of turnovers. And then also his defense, while he's still missing assignments on switches, playing off the ball here and there, those mistakes haven't been as glaring as they were just a few weeks ago. Modest, once again, another 20-point night, another 7 rebounds, 3 assists, a couple blocks to continue adding to that total. But it wasn't just Modest, because Josh Giddey, who has really struggled and hasn't really looked like himself since coming back from injury, March Giddey has indeed returned, where he looked like an all-star last March and played the best basketball of his career. Giddey had the typical Josh Giddey game we were used to seeing before he went down earlier this season, putting up his 8th triple-double on the year, 20 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists. Also, my goodness, that 10th assist that he got to secure the triple-double was electric on that lob pass over to Nick Richards, who had to cock it back to then throw down the slam. That was probably the most excited I've gotten in watching the Bulls play, and probably over the last month and a half. You know that Giddey would thrive with the right lob threat big man next to him. He's just never really had that since coming to Chicago. Definitely not with Vucevic, to a small extent Jalen Smith. That's why it's going to be so critical for the Bulls to get a rim-running lob threat big this offseason, whether it be using all the money they have at their disposal in free agency or via a trade. But anyway, Giddey also found a stroke from behind the arc, hitting 5 threes, went 5 for 11 from three-point range, 7 for 14 overall. I was getting a little worried about Giddey since coming back from that injury, and a game like this put my mind at ease. And then also, shout out to Leonard Miller. No Patrick Williams, no Jalen Smith. We already know the Bulls' depth in the front court is stretched thin. Leonard Miller, who hasn't really gotten any meaningful playing time since being traded to the Bulls, tonight he gets a shot in the rotation and stepped up big time. I really liked his energy and the fact that he doesn't quit on a play and is always fighting for loose balls. He's actually got some decent handles as well. He was pump faking at the top of the key and then would drive it to the basket and finish with his left hand at the rim. 15 points on 6 for 8 shooting. His only misses were from 3. 5 rebounds and 4 assists in 27 minutes of play. Way too early for me to get excited about this kid. and think that we have something with him. Definitely need to see a much larger sample size before we sit here and say that he can actually be a rotational player for the future, but impressive stuff nonetheless from Miller, coming into the rotation and actually contributing in meaningful ways. Yabusele, he's actually having a very underrated stint with the Bulls thus far. I know he's likely not going to be on this team next season, but the man competes and is a force in the paint with his physicality. 12.7 rebounds, 5 assists, no turnovers as well for Yabu. And then Colin Sexton, man, listen, I didn't like the trade for Sexton, obviously a downgrade from Kobe White. I didn't like the fact that he was yet another guard to add to the roster. I didn't like the fact that they didn't flip him before the deadline, and I didn't like the fact that they opted not to buy him out to really focus and prioritize the development of some of these younger players like Rob Dillingham as an example, which I'll talk about in a sec. But one thing I've always appreciated about Sexton is that he's the ultimate competitor. He will always give it 100% when he's on the court, and he's always looking to fire up his teammates and get them motivated to play harder. The Bulls need a guy like that. It's not going to be Sexton because he's going to command more money than he's probably worth as a free agent. The Bulls aren't going to want to sign him long term, but they need a guy that is going to bring that infectious energy that the rest of the team feeds off of. And that's what Colin Sexton did tonight in this game. Had arguably his best game of the season, not just with the Bulls, but his season period. Big time hustle plays, was getting inside, drawing contact. He would finish with a team high 22 points on 9 for 14 shooting, made every single one of his twos. Just a great spark off the bench for the Bulls in this game. Now, my only qualm about this with Sexton is that he put in 32 minutes while Dillingham put in 5. 2 of those mop-up minutes at the end of the game for Rob Dillingham. And look, I get it. Billy Donovan really wanted to win this game. He doesn't want the Bulls' worst losing streak in franchise history to be on his watch, even if it is in a tanking effort. 11 straight games is a lot. And when you see Dillingham throwing up air balls, not taking good shots, and looking a bit lost out there on offense, yeah, you're going to opt to play Sexton. But my worry is that you're never going to develop and build confidence in this kid if you just keep giving him the hook and prioritizing these other veterans who won't be with the team going forward when these games don't mean anything anyway. Dillingham has a lot of work to do not get me wrong, and I've said this before, I still don't know if he can actually be an NBA level player because of his size, but you'll never truly know unless you give him some run in a season that doesn't matter anyway from a win-loss perspective. I hope this isn't a consistent occurrence for the rest of the year, but anyway, the Bulls, they snap an 11-game skid. They finally get a W after having the worst month in franchise history. But let me know what you guys thought of the game. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.